Good morning, adventurers. My name is Ben, and welcome to a morning show where I sit around, drink some tea, and talk about D&D. First up for D&D today, I have the Touch Me Unvaccinated mug from Cancun, Mexico. I have not been to Cancun, also please don't touch me just because I'm vaccinated. And inside of it, we have the Country Peach Passion from Celestial Seasonings. I dropped the box because I'm very good at this. It's a nice, fruity, caffeine-free tea. Still feels kind of end-of-the-day-y to me, so I do like it a lot, and highly recommend it. Getting into what we're actually talking about today, though, I have talked on the channel many a times about how I really like building characters. I've talked many times about how I like making those characters not optimized. I have talked many times about how I like to make those characters different from your average, type of character. I've talked about subverting character expectations outright. So today, to sort of not probably round out the series, because I'm sure I'll talk about it more in the future, but to stack onto that idea, we are talking about the best, in my opinion, subclass from each class in order to build a character that easily subverts character expectations. The easiest one for you to sort of take and then jump off from there with a subversion of the archetypal character that comes from each one of those classes. This is, again, pretty much all my opinion, and by pretty much I mean it is entirely my opinion because I'm the one that made up this list, so fight me if you don't like it, or something like that. But let's just go ahead and let's get to it. I'll give a little bit of explanation for it as I go through here, but we're just going to go top to bottom, alphabetical order, which means we start off with the Artificer. The Artificer is actually one of the easiest ones to pick because there are only 4 subclasses for the Artificer, which means that our first one, the easiest to subvert, I don't know how to phrase that, subclass for the Artificer is the Alchemist. The other 3 focus on building things, and that's really sort of what the Artificer as a whole is built around. It's constructed around the creation of things, and most of the time those go in the direction of actual physical objects. The Alchemist, on the other hand, takes it in the direction of potions and whatnot. They are the sort of built-in healer for the Artificer. They don't do a whole lot of damage necessarily. It makes the most sense for it to be the Alchemist. It is the only subclass with a different flavor from the other ones. The flavor from the other ones is all mechanical in some capacity, be it a dog friend, bazooka, or an Iron Man suit. Up to you how you want to roll with each of those, but the Alchemist is the one that sits around and brews potions and has a good old happy time healing people, which is definitely very different. Next up, moving on down the list to the Barbarian. This one is a little bit tougher, and really all of the rest of these from here are tougher. They don't necessarily have one that stands out all the time, but this one I looked at it and I went, Barbarians archetypally are the angry, rash out, like kind of individuals. So for this one, I went with the path of the Ancestral Guardian because this path is one that focuses a little bit less on just being angry all the time. Obviously, everything is connected to your rage because that is the core mechanic of the Barbarian class. But this one does a lot more with helping to shut down enemies instead of just bludgeoning them to death with whatever is in your hands. So, Path of the Ancestral Guardian seem to make more sense here because all of the other ones, Battle Rager, Berserker, Beast, Zealot, Storm Herald, etc., they all are all about just hammering home the point of your hammer into someone's face. Ancestral Guardian, while still doing a lot of that, has some features that go with it that are a little bit more utilitarian than maybe some of the other ones, and that is why it takes the Barbarian spot for me. Moving right on down the list to Bard. Bard, this one, kind of a toss-up, honestly, but I did eventually land in the College of Spirits. The College of Spirits, in this case, being the furthest I could think to get from your typical sort of lute-playing bard singing in a tavern for some money and a room. College of Spirits, you are still more than likely going to be some kind of performer. However, you could play this one as somebody who's just plagued with ghosts of some sort. But I am honestly kind of shocked that some of our more witchy and magic-y celebrity D&D players have not played a tarot reader College of Spirits Bard yet, because that seems very much up their alley. Could very easily see Talos and Jaffe doing something like that. And so I am surprised they haven't done that yet. but College of Spirits feels like the one that you could be the most sort of like closed off, almost like chill bard, I guess, like just not in your face quite so much, but still obviously dealing with a high charisma and all of that because you are still a bard. So that is the one that falls into that slot for me. Moving right along to the Cleric class. This one, again, so much is focused on like being good and like dealing with life and death and all of that. And so it's kind of hard when you're trying to find something that is not on the spectrum of life and death, when your whole deal a lot of the time is dealing with life and death, which is why you might be thinking that I went with the Arcana domain. I did not, because it is still dealing with magic in that capacity. I instead went with the Forge domain, something that is really focused on the physical rooting of everything. In my mind, is the furthest way you can get from something that is so just invested in a god. Obviously, you are still going to be invested in your deity, your higher power, whatever it is that you draw your power from as a cleric, but the Forge domain, a lot of that power is coming directly from that pit of fire over there that you are currently drawing metal out of. And so the Forge domain really feels like something that you could take and run with to actually like subvert those expectations in a way. You could be a town blacksmith who just like happened to start getting magic powers one day because the god of the area was like, hey, I like you. You're a pretty cool gal right there. Let's go ahead and let's get you some magic. And you go, I don't want that. And you just sort of run with it. Moving on down to the Druids. This one was easy for me. I've talked about this one on the channel before. I've talked about how much I love this circle. I've talked about how it is one of my favorite subclasses in the entire game. Circle of Stars Druid. All of the rest of them have to do with animals or nature or something like that. Circle of Stars is the one that you can really run with even if you are a not from a wooded area. Really, you can do it with a few of them. However, Circle of Stars is the one that feels the best. I ran a Circle of Stars Druid that is on a D&D show that may see the light of day at some point, might not. Either way, it was a lot of fun to play. I loved him dearly. He grew up in a city as like a child thief, and so being a Circle of Stars Druid was actually very helpful because you know what? At the end of the day, you can still see the stars in the city. The only place you can't really see them is underground, and that is a different problem entirely. So Circle of Stars is a really great one when you are trying to not like hammer home the nature stuff, but you still need a little flavor of it. Jumping down to our Fighter. This one, actually very tough because the Fighter is a really well-designed class with a lot of really well-designed diverse subclasses that all focus on fighting. Similar to the Barbarian, we have to look at the way that some of these things are used in a utility sense. I almost went with Battlemaster, but Battlemaster is so archetypal at the same time that I went with the other one that has a lot of utility just sort of built into it in the Rune Knight. There are plenty of runes that you can have that don't do a whole lot in combat necessarily when, well, they do plenty in combat. They are more focused, though it seems to be, on something that you can be doing outside of combat in a more like interactive, not interactive, in a more roleplay based setting, which is why the Rune Knight takes that spot, because it feels like one that you don't have to be a man with a sword to do. You could be just some random person who found these runes, had them inscribed on their body, they woke up with them all of a sudden, something like that. Feels like something you could just be thrown into even though you've never had a day of training in your life with a sword. So I really, really like that one. Down the list to Monk. This one stuck out like a sore thumb. You probably already know what I'm going to say, but if you don't, I'll just give you a little hint right here. I'm kidding, there's no booze in this, but the Drunken Master Monk does stick out against the other ones like a lot, quite frankly, very, very much so. And it might just be because we have seen Emily Axford play a Drunken Master Monk as a Jersey housewife, but all of the rest of them are really focused on like life energy and like being calm and whatever. And the Drunken Master is just like, hey, I'm gonna get you, and kind of wobbles up to you. Has some really, really great class features, don't get me wrong. It is a bizarre addition to the class list for Monk, all things considered. Skipping on down to our Paladin. Paladin, once again, one that you are kind of sitting there going, you know, most of these are very much like down the pipe. And there was one like crazy obvious answer that I didn't go with because it still feels kind of archetypally paladin. Archetypally paladin in this case being the like super devoted to like your oath, rah, kind of thing. Like I uphold my vow. So I didn't go with Oathbreaker as the one that was not this. Instead, actually, I went with the one that I have said a couple of times in the description for this. I went with the Oath of Devotion because, to me at least, an archetypal paladin is somebody who upholds usually upholds or tries to uphold the laws of the land or of an organization or something like that. And devotion feels like one of the easiest ones to take and be a leader of like a rebel cause or something like that. You're devoted to this other idea that is all about ripping down the institution that exists in the current space. Oathbreaker still feels like it's on that spectrum of like good versus evil paladin, and devotion feels like it's the one that, as long as you really believe in what you're doing, you could be freewheeling however you want to be with it. And so that is why I picked that one in the paladin set, even though, again, paladins are well designed around one very specific concept, and that is the strength of their ideals. Sliding on down, you already know what it is for Ranger. I mean, come on. If you don't know, you haven't been watching this channel very long. There's a reason I love it. There's a reason it's my favorite Ranger subclass. The Horizon Walker Ranger is so funky compared to the other ones. Fey Wanderer is a good addition as well. However, Fey Wanderer still focuses on like the animals and the nature. Horizon Walker, it's all about like weird portals and stuff. And there isn't really another ranger that does that. The rest of them are all focused on hunting or animals or the woods or something like that. And the Horizon Walker is all about like finding portals and then using portals and doing stuff with portals. It's really weird. It's kind of niche, but as I've said many times before, once you hit that level 11, it takes off and it's really, really good. I adore the Horizon Walker. Everybody that has seen this show knows I adore the Horizon Walker. I will say it again and again. It is my absolute favorite. I'm so excited that I get to run for somebody who is running a Horizon Walker shortly here. Oh, I love it so much. It is definitely the one where you can take your typical ranger and just like right turn it the easiest into a variety of different ways. Gloomstalker could obviously be like an assassin or something like that. Fey Wanderer, I guess, really could be like a Circle of Shepherds, almost a druid, but Horizon Walker is so funky in such a bizarre way that it practically writes itself. For Rogue, Rogue was kind of tough because there's so many archetypal rogues, you know? And so I went with the only one I could think to really, really go entirely against most of those, because the archetypal rogue, at the end of the day, is an outlaw. So when you're an inquisitive rogue, you can be Sherlock Holmes instead. You can be that detective. You can be the one who is finding everything out. They don't necessarily have a whole lot of features that hammer on combat, which a lot of other rogue subclasses do. But the inquisitive rogue is really, really great for like being the person that is figuring everything out. You're Charlie Day with the red string on the wall, and you would be the one investigating the other rogues. And so that's a really cool like concept that you can go with. Most of the other rogues have really phenomenal flavor to them. Everybody knows how much I love the Phantom. You could also be like a tarot reader with the Phantom, haunted by ghosts, whatever. I think Inquisitive is the one that takes this one, though. Mastermind kind of up there as well, but it's still very much more geared towards like the impersonating people thing, whereas Inquisitive is about figuring things out. Skipping it down to the Sorcerer, we have the only Sorcerer that really goes against the concept of chaos and wildness, the Clockwork Soul. It is very much just like it is all about order. It is regimented, as much as a Sorcerer can be, of course. It's still kind of all over the place, but the Clockwork Soul is very much, it's about clockwork. It's about things working together. It's about geometry. It's about having things that actually function together in the right way. And that is why that takes that spot, because quite frankly, all of the other ones are built around some kind of chaos in some degree, except for maybe Divine Soul, like maybe, but it's still kind of out there. Jumping down to Warlocks, we're almost to the end here, stick with me. Warlocks. This one was actually a toss-up for me between two of them, but I went with the Great Old One eventually over the Archfey, because the archetypal Warlock, in my mind, is sort of that, like, kind of almost evil person, made a deal with some really, really sketchy person at some point, and is going to have to deal with that eventually. Great Old One Warlocks and Archfey really are less about, like, the nefariousness, usually, of the patron, usually. It's all about how it gets played. And a little bit more about, like, Archfey being the trickstery, more type ones, naturey. Great Old Ones to me, though, can really run in any direction, which is why I picked it for the easiest to subvert character expectations. You can make your Great Old Ones an Archfey. You can make them an Archfey. You can make them a Celestial. You can make them pretty much any of the other patrons if you want to, because any of the other patrons could be considered a Great Old One at some point, but it's going to be nature-based, and you just have to reflavor a little bit. So really, as long as you are gearing your stuff towards whoever your patron actually is, you can do almost anything with the Great Old One's Warlock. Finally, down to the Wizard. There is an insanely obvious answer to this one as well. In Bladesinger, it's the only wizard that is like, give me a sword instead of magic, even though it uses magic a lot. So I actually went ahead and I threw a different one in there. I went with the Enchantment Wizard as well, because your archetypal wizard is going to be the book nerd that, like, shoots fireballs and stuff. And with Enchantment Wizard, you're doing all of the talking to people. You're going to be, like, interfacing. You're going to be casting spells that involve, like, affecting each other's minds. So it seemed like a good fit as well. But don't get me wrong, Bladesinger, definitely the furthest away with its sword instead of its weird knobby staff. So those are my best character subclasses to subvert character expectations. That was a really bad title, but I will surely figure something out by the time I post this. In like an hour. Anyway, getting on to the shows that we have today. Today, in no particular order as it is Wednesday, we have Dimension 20, of course. Knocked Prone, Venture Maidens, Trials and Trebuchets, and Roll Out. Please go check them out. Let them know they sent you, because again, someday somebody's going to say something to me about it, and I'm going to think that it's funny, but until then, I'm going to keep asking you guys to do it. So, anyway, that is everything I have to talk to you guys about today. So, thank you so very much for making me part of your morning routine. I really do appreciate it. And thank you so much in particular to my patrons. You guys are the ones that make this show possible. If you're interested in becoming a patron, check out the link in the episode description here. And yeah, that's really it. So, you know what they say. With all that said, guys, don't forget, drink tea, play D&D, and keep on rolling.